Hello everyone. We are with Antoinette Monroe today, and she is a phenomenal investor, and she's going to give us some insight if you are interested in the process and the journey of becoming an investor. Antoinette, go ahead and take it away. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Antoinette Monroe. I'm from Miami originally, and I have been investing seriously since 2018. And real estate investing has been the impetus that has led to the biggest changes in my life. I came to real estate investing on a path to pursue and gain financial freedom, and I found it and found it quicker than I would have through other paths like career enhancement and saving to it. So real estate is the RE in my fire. If anybody follows the financial independence movement, it's usually financial independence through retire early. But my fire is financial independence through real estate investing, and that's been true for me.
I love that. So, I know this may be hard, but I want you to take us back to the beginning. Take us back to 2015. So, what was your relationship with money at that time?
In 2015, I was just working a job. I had a job, the job that I got out of college. I was probably in like my fourth year at that time. I knew that I didn't want to pursue that career path, but it was what I had, so it's what I was doing. And my focus was okay, financial independence, but I was coming from a debt reduction, um, minimal expenditure lens because at that time I didn't have any awareness of the power of real estate necessarily. But I knew that if I could control my expenses and I didn't need money or as much money, that I could get to freedom in that way. So, I had been saving, I had paid off all my student loan debt. I was very strict financially with the way I used what little money I had, but I still didn't know just yet that I was going to become a real estate investor and that would be like a full time focus.
And then, in terms of that debt that you're talking about, before you bought your first property, which is something that we have these conversations about with first time home buyers, like the importance of knowing what your debt was, were you aware of the amount of the debt? And if so, what was that amount?
Well, yeah, and I had I want to say an unfair advantage, but I was really just obsessed about money. Like I feel like when you grow up in a lower economic setting, you're either going to repeat the same things that you grew up in, or you're going to go the opposite direction and avoid at all costs. And that was the route I took. It was avoid at all costs. So my college selection was based on where I was going to get the highest scholarship because I didn't want student loan debt. So I've been managing my debt since high school. When I did graduate, I had a small amount of student loans, maybe about 18,000. So immediately with my first job, everything, every paycheck went towards that debt. So within the first 2 years of graduation, my debt was paid off. And that's just how I lived my life. Like I used credit cards, but I paid them off in full every month. So debt was never a mountain to overcome. It was like the primary objective from day one with that very first paycheck out of work.
I love that. And thank you for your transparency because I do know we have a lot of people who are financially irresponsible. So, what would be your advice to them if they're getting serious about jumping into the investor pool?
I would definitely say the tools that you will learn, like when you get your financial life in order, when you build your budget and you start adhering to that and saving your money and reducing your debt, all of those skills, all of that discipline, all of the analysis that comes with that are tools that you're going to use even as a real estate investor because you're going to have to do that for the deals. So the best place to learn it is with the business of you. Before you go into some other type of business, you can learn the discipline and the financial control, just managing the business of you first and foremost. And by the way, it will put you in a good financial position to be able to purchase or qualify for loans.
Love it. So, let's jump into the idea of your portfolio. So, from your first house, are you willing to share with us how many doors you own right now?
I own four properties. Hold on. That's right. Okay, I own four properties. Each property is at least two doors. Um, because when I buy a home, I will reconfigure it so that I can get that dual income from it. So that's been like my specialty. I didn't necessarily want to have this huge portfolio because if financial freedom was my goal, which meant not having to work, I didn't want to create this new job now managing all of these properties. So I kept it really tight. So 4 properties, which count as 8 doors.
And then in terms of management, did you hire a management company? Or are you self-managing this? What does management look like for you?
I have self managed, but 2 weeks ago I hired my first property manager, and it's because I have a property that's in another city that I don't want to go to, and I was just tired of like splitting my focus. What I'm doing where I live locally with the properties is my primary objective. So any additional thing I was doing, I've been outsourcing. So yes, as of 2 weeks ago, I now have a property manager for the properties in Miami.
So knowing what you know now, would you have started with a property manager or would you still have gone the same route?
I still would have gone the same route because that's just me. Like, I am always looking for the most economic option. I'm trying to save money and not spend. And so for me, I'm willing to do that sweat equity to work for it so that I'm keeping more money in my pocket. I think it depends on where you are and how financially distressed you are, whether or not you use a property manager. The more you need money, the more you need to do the work yourself. Um, the closer you get to more financial stability, then you can kind of weigh the cost of, okay, what can my energy be better used somewhere else? And can I outsource this thing? But also, it depends on the cash flow uh, in that deal or in that property, because it may not necessarily cash flow well enough for you to afford to lose 10% to a property manager.
Love it. So I'm going to jump into something really quick. We're going to pivot a little bit. You talked about the rentals, and I know Orlando short term rentals are extremely difficult right now, at least selling them. So, or our inventory is very high. Can you give us some background in the type of rentals that you own?
To start, like if I go back, the first purchase that I made, I was 19. I was in college at FAM. And to me, it was just like, okay, I've been managing my money since high school. It didn't make sense for me to be giving my money away. So, what could I do to try to keep more money in my pocket? So, I convinced my sister to take out a loan for me on a townhouse there with the agreement that I'll manage everything. I rented out one of the bedrooms, and that was my start, just a traditional rental roommate situation. Fast forward to when I purchased my first property as an adult, it was meant to just be a property for myself, still not trying to be an investor, but paying it off within 5 years or as aggressively as possible so that I now have some level of financial freedom because my biggest expense is taken care of. In the process of positioning that property so that I could, pay it off sooner, we tried Airbnb. I had heard about it, we tried it. And so, as an adult investor, I never did long term. I went straight to short term. But I was living in one half of the property and renting out the other half on Airbnb. And within a year, it kicked me out. And so both sides became Airbnb and I had to move somewhere else. So short term has always been my primary. Um, and the only time I've done long term was like in the secondary market where the house wasn't immediately here. That when I did long term.
So, if you were to start from scratch today, for someone who's just buying their first property, would you recommend short term rentals?
I would, but I would also recommend house hacking primarily. I would recommend you purchasing a property that has multiple units so that you're living in one and renting out the other. So you're eliminating your expenses while also generating income, because that is what makes the property an asset. To me, if you just purchase a house that you're just living in on your own, you picked up a liability. It's not giving anything back to you. It's only going to take. So if you are trying to achieve financial independence or build a portfolio, I think the easiest way to start is always going to be buying a place for you to live, but making as smart a purchase as possible so that that home pays for you to live there.
Love that. And thank you for explaining house hacking for those of you who are watching. That was beautifully put. So I'm going to ask, are you comfortable with going over the strategies that you use when you're selecting if this is the best property for you to purchase?
Sure, and it's very simple. Like I don't have a deal analysis worksheet. I'm very bad at math. So calculations, I don't really get into that. It is super simple. With that first choice, it was what area did I want to live in? Because if it was a nice area that I wanted to live in, somebody else wants to live here too. What could I afford? That was the driving factor. I didn't want to make a purchase over 200,000. So I had a hard cap on what I was willing to spend, but with that came the willingness to be able to do work and fix it up. So I bought the smallest, ugliest house in the best neighborhood and then put in that sweat equity again to make it what I needed it to be. Did I
Now,
answer your question?
you did. No, you did. And then it was something that you mentioned about the idea of putting in the work, right? I think there's this like instant gratification that we're struggling with as a society where people jump into real estate and they're like, yes, I'm going to do Airbnb and I'm going to get money right away. Can you talk about what that process was like for you to actually find tenants?
From a short term rental, and when I started again, this was like 2017, February 2018 when we went full time. And in Orlando, where Airbnb, and I'm talking about Orlando proper, not out where Disney is. So wasn't that much going on in terms of vacation rental. So it was like, like lightning. As soon as you listed it, you had bookings coming. Now, of the other listings there, I may have been the last one to get booked. So I'll have a lot more last minute reservations, but I was never at a loss for them. And again, I'm just using this to supplement my income and to um, pay my bills. It's not like I have a whole other property and a second set of mortgage and bills that I have to cover where I'm dependent on how much volume or traffic I could drive. Because I was house hacking, everything was good. Any reservation, any amount that was helping me. So it felt more like a magic, like the easy button. Immediately you list it, and now my mortgage is fully covered, and I live in my house for free.
So it sounds like definitely the right location, making sure that you
Mhm.
price it right, and just being aware of what your expenses are were super
Yeah,
important. Okay.
I just purchased within my means. There wasn't a deal analysis to understand what the rents were in the area, or what my cap rates or any of that stuff would be. I purchased within my means, um, in an area that was desirable, but also at, you know, maybe not as desirable the property, and I made the property desirable.
So can you walk us through like what it kind of like a rehab would look like for you?
Oh, well, I'm tearing it down, right? So if I'm rehabbing something, I'm walking in, I'm tearing out walls, I'm pulling up the floors. Like I am gonna imagine exactly what I want and refit that house to do it. But like literally that first house, I'm doing it with I'm hanging drywall, I'm knocking the walls out, I'm putting floors out, I'm painting because I ain't had no money. And so if I wanted this stuff done, I had to learn how to do it. So YouTube University was real. Asking friends for help. I had paint parties, had my friends come over, everybody paint. It'll look good enough. Um, but that helped me afford to be able to do what would be like an expensive rehab for somebody else. So one, educating yourself and giving yourself the tools to do some of it yourself, but in doing it and experiencing it on your next deal, when you're hiring somebody else to do it, you understand why you're getting priced the way you're priced.
Mhm.
And you know what to expect. So that experience is like, I don't know, super priceless to have learned it using your own hands. And now from the outside looking in, when you're working with contractors, you're better prepared to deal with them.
I love that you talked about that because I learned that it's best for you to learn what the skills are. You may not be great at it, but you know the basics so you can speak the
Hmm.
language when you're hiring somebody.
Hmm.
So, what are some things that you're like, you thought it was going to be easy, and then you're like, yeah, no, I'm never doing this again?
Well, the first thing was knocking out drywall. So I bought a house that was built in 1956. What they did back then was different material altogether. So, I'm watching HDTV. They hit the wall one time, whole thing falls down. The house is different in 2 days.
Yeah.
that's not what kind of walls was built in 1956. So I was
Right.
just funny, but it was much harder. Like the way I saw it on HGTV, it was nothing like that. It was much harder to do the demo and to rebuild it than the story that I was sold on TV. And quite honestly, once you knock the wall down, you're stuck. Like there's
Right.
no way out but through. So I underestimated the intensity of what doing a physical rehab would be um, myself.
Okay. And then in terms of the way that you structured the property, we don't have to go into this in too much detail. You can give me like a high level overview. I've heard some people say that they purchased a home under an LLC or they've purchased a home under their personal name. When you first started, do you remember how you set it up?
Yeah, I purchased it under my name. Again, I wasn't a real estate investor. I was just a person trying to make a good financial decision. So I went to the bank, I bought the house, I put down the 20% or whatever they required of me. Um, would I do it differently? And I think each home purchase has been different, a different loan type. But that first one, it was just I went into the bank and was like, I want to buy a house. What do I do? And then I just did what I was told. So there was no like unique strategy. I think the only thing I did that might have been different is instead of getting a 30-year mortgage, I did a 15.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if I was more savvy and I knew I was going to become a real estate investor, maybe I would have leveraged the FHA loan option, which I didn't even consider at all. So yeah.
So, knowing what you know now, you're talking to your younger self. What would you advise in terms of becoming an investor or thinking with an investor's mindset now?
For sure, you're going to house hack first. So, you're going to solve two problems at once. You're going to create a source of income for you while also eliminating your bills. So, first step, house hack. In terms of the loan product that you use, the more money you can keep in your pocket at first, the better off you're going to be in terms of having money available for any renovations you want to do or getting that next property. So, consider FHA loans, but also the NACA program, first time first time home buyer programs. Make sure you're getting taking advantage of everything, every resource that's out there for you on that first purchase. um, and do a little work. Don't buy a ready-made already done house because you're leaving equity on the table. If you buy something that you have to put a little work into, you can make that equity in that home grow faster than if you buy something that's like, say, new construction.
Mm-hmm.
And now who knows how long it takes for there to be enough value in that house for you to then leverage for another investment.
Love that. Thank you. And then, in terms of misconceptions, now that you're in it, like you know what it takes to be a real estate investor, we are in the world of Claude and ChatGPT, um, abyss of information. What are some misconceptions that you may have heard, or some myths that you want to debunk for people?
Um, I don't know if they're myths or misconceptions, but I will say one of the traps is looking at what everybody else is doing and comparing yourself to them. Um, it can look really sexy on social media when you see people and they're wholesaling or they got 100 units or this or that. It looks really, really sexy. But one, you don't know the truth of what their situation is. And two, all you can do is what you can do with what you got. So block out the social media noise and build a plan from your point of reference with the resources you have available and make that work. Um, I say it's not as sexy as it looks online. Like there's gonna be hard work, there's gonna be sweat, there's gonna be broken nails and cuts, but the reward is true, right? Like real estate is a true path to financial independence. It can replace your job income. The reward is true. I think the process that you may see might be what's altered because every process is going to be specific to the person and where they're starting from.
Love that. And then we're gonna close this out. So these are more geared towards like advice you would give or reflective questions. So for someone who has really big ambitions, like and they're willing to do the programs. Like Lake County has a program, Orange County has a program where they'll get money towards the down payment. Do you advise them to take advantage of using that money and investing it in another property? Or would you advise them to sit on that and wait for the next opportunity?
Well, most of the first time homebuyers programs, they're going to have a caveat. You have to live there and you might have to live there for a minimum amount of time, but still view that purchase as your future rental property, because once you meet their requirements, there's nothing stopping you from refinancing into another loan product to be able to make a second purchase, or selling that home altogether to make a purchase that better aligns with your real estate investing objectives. So I say initially, you do what you got to do to take the first step. And then once you've gotten there, you learn about different strategies so you can take the next one.
Love it. And then the series is Nobody Told Me That. So, what is, we're going to finish the sentence for you. What is one thing that no one told you that you wish they would have told you about this journey?
I'm going to take my time and figure this out. um, no one told me how lonely it would be. When you become an investor, your thought process is going to be different than your current network at that time, unless you happen to be surrounded by investors. Um, and you're going to look like the crazy person, maybe a little bit, because who, I'm not renting my house out. I'm not having strangers in my, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's going to have something to say about it, but you have to know the reason you chose to do it and what your end goal and gain is going to be, and stick to that. And in that process, your life and path may diverge from many of the people that are currently in your network or that you're spending the most time with, um, because they may continue on a traditional path in life where they just, go to work, come home, and rinse and repeat. So I think that part, no one said how lonely it would be and how intentional you would have to be about building a community around you as you transform into an investor.
That's so good. That's so, so good.
I
Is
had to
there,
work real hard to get down.
no, that was good. That was good. Is there any resource that you're like, no, if you're thinking about being an investor, you definitely need to check this out, or podcast, or anything that you're like, you know what, I definitely encourage people to listen or read or hear about this thing?
Well, I'll tell you the resources I used. I probably can't speak to their efficacy today, but for sure, biggerpockets.com was a wealth of free resources for me to learn about real estate investing, and primarily listening to all the podcasts they have. They probably have like 4 or 5 different podcasts. I learned the most there. And when I heard things on the podcast or read things in the forums that I didn't understand, I joined a local real estate investors group so that I can go there with my questions. And I think, and that was really it. And Google, general Google. But quite honestly, I would listen to a podcast on my way to work. Anything I didn't understand, I would take notes. I found a local real estate investors meetup that met like maybe once a week, however frequently. And I would go there with my list of questions. And when I showed up, it was like boom, boom, boom. Like I'm not just here to sit in the room and look at y'all. Like I got questions, let's get answers to them, which helped me piece it all together. And I think after you've done some research, the only way you're going to know or truly learn is by doing. So you can read all the books you want, you can listen to all the podcasts you want, but if you don't take action, you're never going to learn or understand the practical application of these things, of the information you've been taking in.
Love it, Antoinette. That is our time. You are amazing. You are transparent. You don't sugarcoat the reality of what it is to be an investor. So I thank you for doing that.
I do try to share what we can about what we're doing with real estate so far and just the
Okay.
phase that we're in now. And so we do have social media. It's Fearless and Free Fi. So Fearless and Free FI. And that's on YouTube and Instagram. Right now, we've gone left. We started from short term rental and now we're running nursing homes. Still real
Wow.
estate adjacent, but just something completely different. So a lot of what's on social media right now is just talking about the transition. So when you become a real estate investor, you really can become anything after that.
Thank you. And then you said the best way to get in touch with you is what? Instagram, YouTube.
Instagram, YouTube, Fearless and Free FI is the easiest way to find me.
I love that. And then that community portion, is there any recommendation on how to find that community?
For like the local real estate investors group,
Hmm.
oh, just Google any city you're in. Just Google real estate. It's called a REA, REAI. Don't get me trying to tell you what the acronym means, but a general Google search of local real estate investors meetup or local real estate investors club, you'll find something.
Well, I look forward to connecting with those of you who are interested in learning more about Orlando real estate. Make sure you subscribe so you can see the next guest we'll have coming on next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.